Ahead and start the Code Revisions, Appeals, and Negotiations Committee. I'd like to call to order. Roll call, please.
Mayor Taylor.
Present.
Alderman Hayes.
Present.
Alderman Kirkwood.
Present.
Alderman Moiseo. Alderman Newsom. I'm sorry, Alderman Seeger. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Old business. Can I have a motion for item A? I need a motion for item A. A first?
So moved.
Alderman Hayes, a second. Second, Alderman Seeger. An ordinance approving an amendment to sections of Article 14 relating to mobile vendors. Any discussion about this? Discussion? Yes.
We talked about the mobile vendors going from a certain time, but also it's not every day of the week. Mm-hmm. And it coincides with the bars closing at 2 o'clock. Mm-hmm. And then they continually can go into certain areas, not throughout the whole town. Is that correct?
Yes.
So have we, and it's not Monday through Sunday, it's only
It's weekends, I believe.
weekends.
Yeah.
You know, so have we considered looking at that, through the week?
Well, generally speaking, there's not as much business in the week, and so there's like Mondays, even, restaurants are closed, you don't have the same kind of business. But this was something that was actually considered, and staff brought this up. This was actually considered under a previous administration of wanting this, that they were going to expand this out from the entertainment district and make it citywide, and those were the hours that they had discussed at that time.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Bolton?
I apologize, he's referring to the next.
Oh, okay.
I have a comment, Mayor.
Sure.
That's okay. Alderman Kirkwood, I think, if I'm looking at the right version of this, it was going to be 7 days a week at the beach. So that, when you talk about expanding it out a little bit, that was from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. I think everything else was much more narrow in terms of the timing or the designated area. But it sounds like there's quite a bit of accessibility for the mobile vendors at the beach, if I'm looking at the right version. So,
Yeah. And that was something that people wanted so that they had access to food down there. Oh, let's see. Yeah. Can you switch spots and go into Alderman Moseo's spot? Yeah.
What were the hours again?
I think the hours are 8 to 2 on Clayton Street between County and Genesee, Friday from 8 to 2 a.m. And same location on the third Saturday of each month for Art Walk from 5 to 2 a.m. And then, yep, at the beach. And then there's some timing around the Genesee Theater as well. So they're all pretty clearly laid out in the ordinance, which I think is very helpful.
It's actually, do you have your tablet with, Alderman Seeger? Because it's in your paperwork.
Look at the committee.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions? Roll call, please.
Mayor Taylor.
Aye.
Alderman Hayes.
Aye.
Alderman Kirkwood.
Aye.
Alderman Moiseo is absent. Alderman Seeger.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Item B, can I have a first to hear the motion?
I'll offer a first.
Okay. Alderman Hayes, second.
I'll second.
Alderman Seeger. An ordinance approving an amendment to Waukegan Municipal Code, Chapter 14, Article 7, establishing outdoor dining establishments and repealing 060-116. Any questions to the motion?
Question?
Sure.
In our aldermanic meetings, we talked about the fees for this. And the concern was that if the individual is on their property, that there's still a fee attached, I guess a one-time fee.
Mm-hmm.
And my question is that why do we tax them when it's their property and they're not extending outside in any parking areas, and not Aunt Millie's, but it's Maria's over on
Yeah.
Belvedere.
The hard part is we don't necessarily know that until we go out and do an inspection. And what I mean by that is, like, there's sometimes that people are using this parking space here, but next to it is city property or whatever. The other thing is we also need to know from a public safety point of view, like if it's they're using their deck or something like that, does it meet the safety codes that they're supposed to be meeting? Do you want to address that, or?
Yeah, I think when we discussed this with staff, and again, the Kelly Gander Ski Corporation Council, when we discussed this with staff, it was more of looking at administrative time for processing the applications. There's a cost to that. Inspections, there's a cost to that. Meeting times, there's a cost to that. And I think the discussion that we had surrounding, you know, if there's a fee, what should that fee look like, was the 150 was decided that was the least onerous based on the amount of staff time it was going to take to process these applications.
Any other questions to the motion?
I have a comment about it. As it relates to the fee, I know we've talked about it a few times. You know, there's a fee associated with somebody putting a deck on the back of their house, and that's their property. And the whole idea and the spirit of the ordinance is to ensure that people are building these structures safely. So if they so they're safe in their own home, but if they have guests or anyone else at their house, that it's safe. The city has an interest in making sure that we keep everybody safe. But I think it's very important for restaurants that are inviting people onto their property to pay for dinner and to have drinks and, you know, to park their car close by. There's a lot going on. I think it makes a lot of sense to have those structures inspected. And it's not punitive in nature. It's not trying to, you know, oversee or micromanage every little establishment. I think rather it's to ensure that it's safe and that it's safe for people that are going to, you know, visit these establishments. And it is, in fact, a one-time fee. The city has a legitimate interest in making sure that these establishments that we're licensing are conducting their business safely. You know, Health and Human Services or the equivalent goes out and they make sure that the kitchens are clean, make sure that some of the restaurants are ADA compliant. There's all sorts of restrictions to ensure that people are safe and people are being attended to properly. So I think this is just another way for the city to ensure that outdoor structures are safe, they're not encroaching on other people's property, and we have to pay for the building department's time to go out and do this. And I think $150 is a very reasonable price to try to accommodate the safety of the residents.
These are fees that other cities also have. They're not unique to us, but in doing these, whether it be Chicago or anywhere else, when you do an inspection, there has to be a fee. And I think you want to leave yourself doing an inspection, or you're opening up the door for people to, oh, it's my property, I can do whatever, and then we end up with a problem down the road.
But when we look at, let's say on Genesee, where they're encroaching, you know, the sidewalk area, and they're bringing alcoholic drinks out to that particular area, there's a cost. You know, even though they have a liquor license, there's a cost associated with them taking up part of the sidewalk, but not the parking area, where before they were taking up some of the parking spaces on Genesee because they would have those seats there. So what is the difference? You know, people, the sidewalk is partially taken, and
I'm not sure I
I think so they're using, theoretically, the applicants are using city property, right? Sidewalks, parklet space, perhaps even parking lot space that might be owned by the owner of the establishment, but maybe they're allotted 1 or 2 spaces. It's space that doesn't truly belong to them. If you're looking at an establishment, I forget what the name of the restaurant, that has the concrete tables already established.
Oh, Cheryl's?
Yeah, so there's space like that that was built to accommodate outdoor dining that's legitimately on their property. But if you're using public space, and now we have to account for insurance, liability issues, the city inspectors have to come out and look to make sure that there's adequate space between curb and where the tables are to make sure that patrons are safe. I mean, there is an administrative cost to that.
And the other side of it is that they may, by using some of those parking spots, be violating what they have to have as part of their establishment. So if they have to have 80 spaces and they're using 4 up, then that changes their whole parking dynamic. So we need to make sure that they're still keeping their parking numbers the way that they should be.
So the fee structure is no different if you own that piece of property like Maria's does on Belvedere versus that you're using part of the sidewalk to sit out 2 or 3 tables.
I don't have a copy of it in front of me, so I'm pretty sure.
So I'm not sure I fully understand your question when you say it's their property. So if you're using property that's not yours, set up tables and chairs, there isn't, what the city is trying to do is accommodate those restaurant owners that want that outdoor space. So in order to do that, the city has an obligation to make sure that the patrons are safe, that this is all being done according to some sort of a plan. To make sure that, again, like the curb space between the tables is adequate, that there's ADA access for patrons in wheelchairs and that have handicap. That's the cost to the city, and not to mention the processing of the application. If you're talking about an establishment that was built that had tables permanently affixed, let's say in their front setback, that's not on city property, that's always been there, that's always on their own space. I don't think there's a cost to that because that was already approved with the design of the building way back when. We're talking about space that will now be taken up outside of the restaurant or outside of the establishment that wasn't planned for originally.
And some of those establishments that have tables and things that they may have outside but have never received an inspection to know, are those tables safe enough? For instance, if they're plastic chairs and they're not secured, how do we know that? We don't go out generally and inspect these things. So that's why, to be fair to everybody, we are saying that we need to do an inspection on these properties to begin with if they're doing outdoor dining. And outdoor dining was not as much of an issue, as you know, until COVID happened. And then everybody wanted to do outdoor dining. So there's a lot of people doing it right now. And how this came about was looking at liquor licenses, because we were actually charging more if you had a liquor license and you were a restaurant doing outdoor service as opposed to just having a bar on its own. So when we started to look at that and we realized more and more people were doing outdoor dining, and we really had no way of knowing who was doing it. How do we keep track of that? How do we know, is it a safe environment for people to be eating outdoors at? So that's how this all came about, and that's how we established the fee structure. And we looked at other municipalities to see what their fees were as well.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions to the motion?
You know what, Mayor, before we vote, this isn't a question about the motion per se, but making sure we're voting on the right version. It looks like maybe within the committee there's a different version.
Yes, I was going to bring, but that was on mobile vendors, not on the dining.
I believe the dining ordinance is the same as whatever's on code appears to be correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's being updated.
But we're going to go back and talk about the mobile one to clarify that, because that was on that one.
All right, because I may have misstated it then and when I was reading what I had, so thank you. Well,
Okay, so voting on the establishing outdoor dining establishments, item B. Any other questions to the motion? Roll call, please.
Mayor Taylor,
Aye.
Alderman Hayes.
Aye.
Alderman Kirkwood. Alderman Seager.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to go back and talk about item A for just a minute with the mobile vendors because my understanding is there's two different versions of the mobile ordinance posted. The one in committee is supposed to be incorrect and another in council is correct. Am I right on that?
I think it's backwards.
No, the one on codes is correct.
The one on codes is correct and the one on council in your tablet is incorrect.
We were told that it was supposed to be 7 days a week in 3 locations.
Yes.
At the beach, the casino, and on
In
Clayton
Clayton.
Street.
Yeah. So it's correct in the committee, which we voted on, so we don't have to go back and re-vote on that. But when it comes up on council, you were voting on what we passed in the committee, not what is in your tablet under city council.
That's correct. I
Does-
think they're trying to update it so it changes in
Okay.
the system.
Does everybody understand that? Okay. Okay, clarifying that, let's go on to item C. Can I have a first and a second, please? Alderman Seager for first, a second? I need a second.
Second.
Okay, Alderman Hayes. An ordinance amending Chapter 14, Article 16, Section 14-1101-A, fee and special event permit schedule, establishing a fee for permitting and maintenance of outdoor establishments in the city of Waukegan. I think we kind of just had that discussion, but I'm not sure. Are there any other questions to it, or? Alderman Seager, do you have, go ahead.
Like with the casino, are they going to have outdoor dining? No?
They don't want people outside. They want.
They don't let people outside. They have food trucks, but the food trucks are inside the casino, in the temporary at least. Yeah. So. Any other questions to the motion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mayor Taylor.
Aye.
Alderman Hayes.
Aye.
Alderman Kirkwood. Alderman Seager.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Any public comment? Okay, there being none, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Alderman Hayes, second was Alderman Seager. All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, thank you, everyone.